31st Contact Part 3. Continuation of the 31st Contact Report from the trip with Sim Yaseh on 17th of July 1975. Pages 403-421. Since the transitional phases and the transmissions have always remained the same phenomena, I will not have to describe them in the future. I am content to put down on paper the thoughts and explanations, etc., so I will leave out the unimportant things and only write down the actually valuable transmissions of Sim Yaseh. That is to say, I simply omit all those descriptions which deal with the entry and exit of the transmission, for no new data have arisen for me in this respect. Consequently, I could not make any other observations. Statement of Tuesday, 16th September 1975.
What is that enormous structure in front of you? It seems like a gigantic wall in the middle of space.
That is the former star and planet system Nisar. It is a dead system, destroyed by the unreasonableness of its former inhabitants. What you call a wall, there are many planets and stars that crashed into each other and created this unique structure. In the mass of these dead worlds, you still recognize some faint light phenomena. These are the destroyed stars, but they still have a weak luminosity and lose it very slowly. This system is from your homeworld, 1.73 billion 1,630,000 light years away, and despite this great distance, the cause of the destruction is to be found on Earth. The inhabitants of the Nisar system, the Nesariner, were a technically and consciously very highly developed people, and they formed a uniform race of humanoid form. For a period of 17,000 years, they lived in complete peace with each other and with the races of the other systems known to them in their galaxy. Their evolution in consciousness and technology was very high, but unfortunately only in the knowledge of the use of their powers of consciousness. They did not possess a spiritual goal in and of itself, and they also had no knowledge of the creation. All their spiritual knowledge rested solely in the partial recognition and observance of the laws of nature. According to these, they acted correctly, but were unable to attain any spiritual goal. By omitting the most important factor of creation, they remained one-sided and exposed to the danger of being led into confusion by unreal consciousness. This danger was very great, and it grew constantly because the Nesarines moved very far, away from their galaxy in terms of research, and came into contact with intelligences which were completely foreign to them and which imparted to them very foreign forms of thought and teachings as well as philosophies. As long as these were still compatible with the laws of nature, everything went well. But then it happened that 3 expedition ships of the Nesarines strayed into the Sol system through a false leap in hyperspace and found human life forms on Earth. That was exactly 1,067 years ago in Earth time. Very similar to Earth humans, they mingled with them and lived together with them for about 50 years, unrecognized and very interested in all earthly things. In particular, their attention fell on the religions dominating the Earth humans. With their highly developed technical possibilities, they collected everything attainable concerning the religions known to them, stored them in their apparatus, and allowed themselves to be very strongly influenced by them. Since their consciousness was only oriented towards natural law, but not also towards the creation, they very quickly found a false sense in the various earthly religions, but they became just as unaware of the false as Earth humans. They now saw another goal and eagerly endeavored to strive towards it. The religious influence thus gained by the Earth humans appeared to them to be of unusually great significance and importance. So they set out to find their home galaxy again, which they actually succeeded in doing after 4 long years of wandering about, to the chagrin of their whole and truly great home system and its inhabitants. The religions learned on Earth were spread and taught on all inhabited worlds, while a small armada of great spacers was sent to Earth to collect further data of the religions prevailing there. During 5 years, research was carried out in secret on Earth, and everything to do with the religions was registered. Then the expedition returned to the home galaxy. Once there, the expedition members discovered that various changes had taken place in the meantime. Houses of worship had been built on all worlds, and the human beings had become discontented. Despite these findings, the new data was evaluated and disseminated, and within another 50 years, the entire great system was under the influence of various earthly religions. Human beings could no longer understand each other, and anyone of a different faith was accused of unreal teachings. Soon these insults led to evil accusations, to quarrels, and then to hatred. Families among themselves divided into different religious groups and beliefs, and then soon the first blood flowed. The family members began to fight and kill each other, and soon it was family against family. This spread to housing estates and whole residential areas, and suddenly it was everyone against everyone. What you call a civil war ensued after another 7 years. The high councils were completely powerless against this, because organizations such as the military, which could have brought order, were unknown in the whole Nisar system. In sudden realization of the madness of the religions, brought in from Earth, the rulers banned them. But it was already too late. The civil wars had already escalated into world wars, and soon the first worlds were destroyed. After another 3 years, a vicious, system-wide war of annihilation was underway, with the centers, the suns, being destroyed. Collapsing in on themselves, they tore into all the planetary systems with irresistible gavolt. A gigantic mass arose, which took over everything that still existed. Eventually, the planets and stars were pulled into a whole heap and joined the huge mass. This is how the enormous structure you see there came into being. A destroyed solar and planetary system of enormous proportions, caused by religious madness, brought in as a deadly form from Earth.
Well, that is madness, all right.
Sure. Now pay attention far out there. That is a black hole in the universe. A black hole in the universe is very dangerous. Such a black hole is a gigantic gravitational pull of immense proportions in empty space. The formation of such a hole in empty space is very easy to explain. Somewhere, for example, there is a sun which suddenly collapses due to violent internal processes. All external and also system-wide mass falls inwards into the center, where it is compressed with unimaginable gavolt. The result is that the mass of matter becomes so dense that a single thimbleful of this material suddenly weighs many thousands of tons. Even an elephant would not be able to carry a single tiny speck of dust. The space of the collapsed masses can no longer be filled by the already empty space, so a vacuum within a vacuum is created. The mass that is concentrated in itself, however, pulls everything into itself that enters the area of attraction of the whole or strays into it. As a result, the mass continues to grow and become larger. Such a hole can also be created artificially. This was also the case in this destroyed system. But before the process had reached its climax, the first worlds already fell into the hole that was becoming. Thus, only the first were destroyed in their structure and form, while those following the first were able to retain their outer form. Thus, the process of hole formation was stopped short of its climax, and only the gigantic and powerful attraction of the whole mass was able to pull the remaining planets and stars into itself. But now the next leap is already prepared and we are about to transmit.
Here we are again much further away from Earth than before. The distance to your home system is now 1,160,000 light years. This is the galaxy ASAP, and over there you see the world Disom. It is a world inhabited by human forms according to your time and values, living approximately in the Middle Ages. They live in larger villages similar to those you have in the Oriental world. A second race from this world doesn't live in permanent houses. It is nomadic and builds huts out of plants and bushes. You can see this world up close because Sim-Ya-Se will take you there with her beam ships. But first notice the giant sun up ahead. Its power is already diminished and will be extinguished in a few tens of millennia. The moon you see there is about 4 times the size of the Earth's moon. In about 3.2 million years, it will crash into the giant sun as the 3 bodies slowly work their way towards each other.
And what happens to the human beings then?
They will have developed technology useful to them by then, which will allow them the possibility of escape from their world.
And if that is not the case?
But it will be. If this were prevented by any events, then help would be brought to them from outside. This is arranged according to cosmic laws.
That is reassuring. But how is it now can we also talk to the human beings down there?
I am afraid that will not be possible on any of the worlds we will be visiting in the next few hours. Everywhere it is appropriate not to let us be seen, so we have to wrap ourselves in our protective shields. We must only allow ourselves to be seen where the evolution in question and our directives permit.
It is a great pity, but I understand.
That is good. Now come on.
The excursion only lasts a few minutes, during which I can take several photos. Already we are heading back and Ta initiates the next transmission.
Here we are, 1,180 million light years away from Earth in the galaxy Nippon. What you see there is the system Lisa. You see there the 3 big formations. The 2 there standing so close together are 2 sister planets of immense size. The one a little further away and even bigger is the giant moon of the sister worlds. It is about 5.24 times bigger than the Earth.
Fabulous.
That is absolutely normal. Only to Earth humans and other non-spacefaring races do these things seem fabulous, as you call it. Your scientists cannot even imagine such giant worlds in their wildest dreams. The truth is beyond their comprehension.
I do not doubt it.
Come now, we will also take a short flight on these worlds.
Again, I was able to take some photos and hope they turned out well. Explanation from the 15th of September 1975. One of the 2 Lisa worlds is inhabited by human life forms.
After the next hyperleap,
This one above us is an oxygen world similar in size to Earth. The atmosphere also has similar values, while the planet's surface only bears some resemblance to your deserts, and in many factors has much more similarity to the planet Venus of your system. Here we are still in the Lisa system, which has very large dimensions and must be traversed with hyperleaps. The planet shows very primitive faunal life and already again strong flora growth, but was once very lively in former times. However, a cosmic event destroyed everything again and caused everything to fossilize in a process lasting millions of years. For several millennia now, however, conditions have changed again and new life is developing. As you can see from here, different colors shimmer there. These are desert water and forest areas. The desert-like landscapes are partly made up of rock masses, mountains, and very rotten brittle rock, which slowly decomposes back into sand and then turns into earth over time. The mountains themselves are no higher than 8,000 meters, and they are very similar to the mountains on your Venus. But you will see that for yourself when you are there with Simya-se. You will also be able to take photographs through the open access hatch because the atmosphere is very good for all of us.
Then I am sure the photos will be better too. Ascot has explained that the grid device is not very useful in connection with this Earth-Venus-like planet. However, I now have a question. Invisible and spiritual life forms are supposed to live on such worlds. For example, also on our Venus and on Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Mars, etc. In addition to these, there are also so-called space people or space beings, or whatever they are called. All these forms, however, are said to be in contact with Earth humans, etc., here and there, or even frequently. They are also said to call themselves guardians, universe guardians, angels of God, etc., etc., and to be, so to speak, the guardians of divine laws and universal order. I am now not clear whether these statements are only assertions or correspond to actual facts. To be honest, I can see neither sense nor logic in it. I think that this even contradicts all creative laws and the laws of nature. Somehow I have the feeling that such claims are unreal and spring from delusional overloaded sick brains. I am not quite sure about this, though. It is really just a hunch and a feeling inside me that gives me this view. I just cannot get my head around it, not even through people keep trying to explain to me that my assumption isn't correct, and that these space people or space beings are supposed to really exist. There are even supposed to be forms of guardians that exist in empty space, and so on. What should I really make of this? I cannot accept the whole thing.
How did you come to these things? Did you read books about it?
No, to the best of my knowledge, I have never seen or read such books. I have simply been told on various occasions about these supposed space beings and space people, many of whom are supposed to be purely spiritual forms. However, my feelings and logic simply cannot be reconciled with this.
Then you feel and think very correct. You know about parapsychology, as you call this field of knowledge?
I hope so, at least. I have...
He has extraordinary abilities, as I have recently discovered. He also possesses quite enormous knowledge, as you yourself know very well.
Your excessive modesty is not good. In this, strive for more truthful forms, for the existing ones already border on self-denial. You have already been told this several times. You know a guy named George Adamski, right?
You know him, you have told me about him several times. I also know him personally from before, when he was at the Volkshaus in Zurich in May 1959. I did not get the best impression of him then, although I had to talk to him with an interpreter because I did not speak English at that time. I noticed, however, that the man was dominated by a tremendous stubbornness and by a great egoism that seemed unusual to me, but which was supposed to be covered up by an almost perfectly acted kindness and charity. I found that the man had an extraordinary gift for persuasion and suggestion, and always knew how to take over the conversation. It was clear that he had fallen for an ideal and was exploiting it in his own favor with a feigned help for the oppressed. So also fighting injustice seemed to me to be only acted by him and everything only to put himself in the center. It seemed to me that in the first and last place for him, only his own needs were always predominant, and that from the big toe up to the last tip of his hair. I had the impression at the time that in every respect he was only ever concerned with his own ego and his own well-being, which he directed into the highest channels through a tremendous power of imagination and suggestion. He also seemed to me to be dominated by the will to want to be first in every relationship, and also to want to take the lead in every relationship.
You have observed and analyzed the man very carefully, which apparently no Earth human being has ever been able to do before. Adamski indeed showed the qualities you mentioned, but he managed to cover them up almost perfectly and thereby deceived countless human beings. He was born under the sign of Aries and degenerated in a very negative manner. The reason, however, why I am again calling your attention to this man and to parapsychology is this. The space beings you mention do not exist in any form, and they are only the degenerate fantasy product of your impossible parapsychology in the first place. In the second place in this fantasy degeneration functions the aforementioned Adamski. He lived in a hopeless web of lies and was a fantasist with extraordinarily highly developed powers of suggestion. Until a few years ago, your unreal parapsychology partly spoke of space beings of your mentioned form. Adamski took over this form for himself and imaginatively created a special form of being out of them, namely the universe guardians, etc. Neither parapsychology nor Adamski also get to the heart of the truth. Beings of the forms they mention are absolutely non-existent. They have never existed, nor will they ever exist. They are the pure fantasy product of overstimulated, misguided, or sick brains, but on the other hand, they are also implanted fantasy products of the Giza intelligences addicted to world domination. The truth about the most diverse forms of beings rests in completely different values than are claimed by your parapsychology, by Adamski, and various other Earth humans. But these entities have not a single iota in common with the aforementioned fantasy space beings. The truth is that invisible and unrecognizable forms of beings live in the most diverse spheres and dimensions. These are spheres and dimensions that are superimposed on or subordinate to your normal time and that form independent spheres and space-time planes. In and of themselves, these spheres and dimensions, and likewise the life forms or being forms that animate them, are of as material a nature as the Earth human being, his world, and his time plane. The swinging waves of the time planes concerned are, however, structurally fundamentally displaced, whereby these other spheres, dimensions, and forms of life or beings remain invisible and unrecognizable to the Earth human being. The vibrational spheres far inferior to Earth humans are just as invisible and unrecognizable to them as the spheres far superior to them. If this were not so, the most diverse spheres, dimensions, and life forms would flow into each other and cause universal chaos. Fundamentally, nothing at all could exist as a result. So there must be sharp dividing lines to ensure the existence of spheres, dimensions, and entities. Now these others, the being forms or life forms from other spheres and dimensions, which are just as material in their time plane as Earth humans are in their space-time structure, also have their worries and problems, and they too are classified in the cosmic course of evolution. In no wise are they interested in making contact with the time plane, which is yours and means the normal time plane for you. On the other hand, also in various other spheres and dimensions, only very few life forms are capable of opening time barriers and penetrating other spheres, just as this is not the case on Earth. In other spheres and dimensions, then, the beings or life forms are just as material as they are on Earth, except that they are invisible and unrecognizable to you through the vibrational shifts. But there are still the high spiritual planes, the purely spiritual spheres and dimensions. These, however, are no longer material in any form known to you, but are purely spiritual. This means, then, that in these spheres and dimensions there live only beings who are released from the material body and vibrate towards the goal of relative perfection. These are partly the beings which already in the highest planes begin to direct the destinies of the universe in harmony with the creation and are capable of creation. But these entities also do not make contact with Earth humans. This only happens in certain exceptional cases, which are very rarely repeated in millennia of time, when lower beings capable of communication are addressed by higher, purely spiritual life forms and made aware of certain happenings. Without exception, however, this only occurs in connection with the appearance of a life form at some place in a sphere and dimension, which has a mission to fulfill as a prophet, etc. And such prophets exist in all spheres and dimensions, that is, not only on Earth. These are life forms who are to further develop the great masses concerned of their own kind and who have to show them the way of the whole evolution. Such prophets, however, are without exception brought forth by destiny of their own or are chosen by much more highly developed life forms and prepared for their mission from birth. If they are then sufficiently developed, then contact is made with the higher and purely spiritual plane Arahat Atharsata by a Grand Council decision, which already consists of semi-spiritual life forms. From this plane, the prophets are then further instructed in spiritual knowledge, and the teaching of the Spirit is also transmitted to them for propagation. But truly only life forms are capable of this communication with the higher and first pure spiritual plane, which in and of themselves are already semi-spiritual or semi-material, or otherwise spiritually very highly developed. Among our peoples, this is embodied in the High Council, whereas we ourselves are not yet capable of this communication. These spirit forms of high and highest planes are to be calculated in terms of age with many billions, and not only with millions of years, during which they have lived through innumerable incarnations and have evolved to the highest states. This fact also proves the incorrectness of Earth humans' assertions that a being of 10 or 20 million years of age is already of pure spiritual form and is considered a master. Many misguided or deceitful Earth humans speak or write again and again of spirit beings who are said to be several million years old and to communicate with Earth humans. These alleged spirit beings are called masters, gurus, and perfects, etc. by the claimants. In this respect, it is very interesting for you to note that to Earth humans, such concepts of time of some millions of years seem monstrous and incomprehensible. That is, such concepts of time can no longer be measurably grasped and processed by Earth humans. If, therefore, in writings and books such dates of years and times appear, it is of complete certainty that these dates can only come from very ignorant Earth humans, for only to Earth humans speaking of your world do these periods of time appear inconceivable and monstrous. Earth humans, who are still bound to their world in every respect and have only taken the beginning baby steps towards space travel, are not yet able to grasp tremendously large periods of time and distances conceptually. You will experience this fact for yourself when, on your return from this journey, you will name the distances we have covered. So when Earth humans give time references of a few million years, which are supposed to correspond to the age of some time and spirit forms, and which are supposedly connected with them, then these references only correspond to their own small-minded intellect, for they are not able to grasp the truth of timeless endlessness. They are unable to imagine the truth of reality, and so in their inadequate reports, they state an age of alleged spirit forms, which are supposed to be very highly developed, which is deeply below the age of any averagely developed half-spirit being. The averagely developed Earth human being already has an age of over 2.8 million years. It took him or her this time to develop from absolute ignorance through many incarnations to the present spiritual and consciousness level. Accordingly, a life form of only 1 or 2 million years of age is in a rather low and inferior state of development, which, according to spiritual and consciousness values, must be called still very low and underdeveloped. With a total age of only 1 or 2 million years, logically and according to the law of the creation, only that stage has developed where a life form becomes conscious of normal and conscious thinking. This makes it absolutely impossible for any life form, so also for Earth humans, that such beings can contact higher forms in an instructive manner. Masters and perfects, etc., with 10 or 20 million years of age represent only the absolute fantasy of misguided or deceitful life forms. This also makes it clear that if an Earth human being speaks of a master, etc., of 10 or 20 million years of age having communicated with him or her, that this is quite simply untruth, to say the least. According to the laws of the creation and according to the reality of all time planes, such a master, guru, or perfect one must have an age of 40 to 60 million years in order to be able to get rid of the material body at all. This, however, does not mean that this being has already reached relative perfection, because until then, 60 to 80 billion, 60,000, to 80,000 years are necessary until the pure spiritual incarnation into the plane of Arahat Atharseta, because also in the semi-spiritual and pure spiritual realms the creative laws are the same, since becoming and passing determine the course of evolution. Spiritual incarnation, however, is subject to other forms and laws than is the case with material life forms. So a life form of 10 or 20 or 100 or 300 million years of age can never correspond to the pure spiritual form of a being that is even relatively close to perfection. These levels are reached only after the incarnational course of evolution of many billions of years, which, however, without exceptions, are not less than 57 billion, 57,000 years. According to earthly terms, and taking the existence of earthly man as an example, 1 or 2 million years of age with the corresponding incarnations correspond approximately to the state of a 9-month-old child after its birth. This follows logically from the fact that the whole of time is reckoned according to purely creative standards and that these concepts of time are entirely different from those which Earth humans of the present state of consciousness are able to recognize. He or she only reckons according to his or her Earth human's concepts, which are still caught up in complete lack of understanding and do not yield any cosmic values. If a life form, with 20 million years of age and incarnation, had already got rid of its material body and was floating close to perfection, then the universe would have ceased to exist a long time ago, because creation would have already laid itself to rest again in fulfillment of its task. This is because time would simply work much faster in terms of evolution than the creation would be able to cope with. This would mean that the 7 great ages of the life of the creation, or the 7 eternities, as you call them, would shrink to less than 10 billion, 10,000 years. Creation itself lives in a conscious, creating state during 7 great times. Then it lies down to slumber for as many great times, in order to awake and create again for 7 great times. Thus, it develops itself and finally perfects itself through its 7x7 total periods to the primordial creation, in order to then itself beget a life-stable creation, which is again devoted to exactly the same laws. A great time is called eternity with you today, true to the Christian heresies which have brought up the term eternity. Thus, Earth humans today call one great time eternity, and the 7 great times eternities, 7 eternities in which, however, the actual concept of time has been lost. The term eternity finds a completely wrong application in earthly usage because the concept of the time of this time is illogically calculated. Consequently, an eternity is not to be equated with one great time, but with 7 great times. This means that 7 times 7 great times correspond to the 7 eternities mentioned by Earth humans. So the calculation is very simple. One great time is 311,311,000,000,000,000 and 40,040,000,000,000 Earth years, which Earth humans equate with an eternity, but this is an enormous miscalculation, for one eternity is equal to 2,177,000,000,000,000 and 280,002,000,000 80,000 years. The mathematical formula is therefore one great time, 311, 40,000 Earth years. 7 great times, 2,177, 280,000 Earth years, 7x7 great times, 15, 240, 960,000 Earth years, all great time. This is the creation-based time formula of the existence of the creation. Like every life form, the creation also has its course of development and evolution, except that its time values are anchored in very high values. If a human being lives, for example, 50 or 100 years of an incarnation life, then this means for the creation comparatively a time of about 44 trillion, 44,000 years, during which it passes through 7x7 evolutionary stages. The approximately 44 trillion, 44,000 years represent a small time, 7x7 of which add up to a large time. As a comparison, Earth humans live an average of 70 years, then pass away as material life forms in order to incarnate again as material life forms at a later time. Each life lived means for him or her the passing through a certain stage of evolution until he has reached a certain level of spirit. Compared to the times of the creation, this level of spirit can be called the Great Time. The course of evolution of the material life form can be calculated in 7x7, as in the case of the creation itself. To reach a higher level of spirit, the life form must pass through 7 stages of evolution. 7 levels are in the value of the whole, so 7 different levels of spirit must be worked out. When this is done, then a relative perfection is reached, after which the relatively spiritualized form enters into creation. Each spiritual level, however, is divided into 7 sub-levels, as I have already explained. Explained a little more simply, this is called: a material life form has to live through 7 sub-levels of evolution in order to reach the next higher level. Such levels are in turn their 7, which are each divided into 7 evolutionary sublevels, which thus gives the value 7 times 7 as a prerequisite, or are 7 main levels, 7 sublevels, 7x49 further sublevels, which are again multiplied 7-fold. Note Billy. The years of material and then of spiritual life forms are to be reckoned in their evolution in many millions and billions of years up to relative perfection, while the time of the creation itself is, of course, many times greater. Thus, the creation does not only go through millions and billions of years for the fulfillment of its evolution in a great time, but many trillions of years. A sublevel or small time is thus about 44 trillion, 44,000 years, during which time it evolves upwards through 7 such periods to the next higher level. It too, like the material life forms, has 7 plateaus or major times, which are subdivided into subtimes or substages of the same number. If the life forms ultimately enter into the creation itself as perfection, then it evolves further into relative perfection within itself, and after passing through the 7x7 great times, becomes the primordial creation and begets a new creation out of this form. Your Christian calendar is very faulty in all things, so also in the calculation of the great times. Due to the errors that have arisen, The whole creation life of all 7x7 great times has been calculated with only 2,177 280,000 years, which in truth does not correspond to 7 great times, but only to 1 great time. But this gave rise to the Earth human mathematical calculation that the universe would only exist for 2,177,280,000,000 and 2,177,000,000 to 80,000,000 years before it would be transformed again into non-being through the 7-period slumber of the creation during 7x7 great times. Such calculation errors are very common among Earth humans, as well as in terms of ancient languages. Terms of linguistic designations and numerical values, however, are precisely very important for the calculation of very many things. So also every letter of your language alphabets has a certain numerical value, according to which you can calculate everything. If Earth humans paid more attention to these things, they would recognize many dangerous false teachings. In particular, you could calculate the things of your religions and recognize the false teachings from them. Consider the information in the New Testament, where you find the prophecy under the name Revelation, chapter 13, verse 18, which describes the malicious suppression and fighting of the spiritual teachings by the values 6666. This number represents the value of a calculation of the number doctrine that you received from Ascot back in 1956. With regard to the number 666, we know very well that the earthly Christian religions associate it with a so-called Antichrist. This, however, is a malicious falsification of the facts, for this number does not have the meaning of the destruction of Christianity, but the meaning of the destruction of the truth that was spread by Emmanuel about 2,000 years ago. So the number 666 refers to anti-truth and to the destruction of truth, as well as to material and purely worldly things. Christianity itself bears this number, arising from the designations God, Jesus, and Christ. These names, according to your values, contain in themselves deadly annihilation and destruction and complete eradication of truth and creative spiritual teaching. Along with other earthly cultic religions, Christianity is at the forefront with the absolute numerical value of annihilation, destruction, and extermination of truth with the number 666. If you now trace the emergence of this religion, you will find that the Christ religion was brought into being in a year of the number 666, namely in the year 189 of your calendar. This year gives a basic number with a tendency to destruction, annihilation, and extinction, namely 18. The triple value results in 666. The birthday of the Christian religion was therefore already marked by destruction, annihilation, and extermination of the truth. If you continue to follow the dates, you will find that in every year, with the triple value 666, the Christian religion planned or carried out a new bloody crime that cost the lives of countless and innocent human beings. In many cases, these crimes look like political machinations. But the truth is that the Christian religion in particular, in collaboration with other religions and with politics, is the causally main culprit. Almost in regular succession, the Christian religion has thus struck every 10 years since its foundation in 189. For the truth-loving human being, the truth must finally break through, and he must realize that Christianity is the bestial beast of destruction, annihilation, and extermination of truth. Christianity embodies the beast with the number 666, and it is already on the point of destroying the truth and wisdom of the spiritual teachings and the teaching of the creation with such deadly gavolt as has never been the case before. Emmanuel was already aware of the coming of this time of terror, and so he refused to be called God, Jesus, or Christ, which was nevertheless officially done in 189. Emmanuel himself was aware of the doctrine of numbers, and he also knew the future. In sorrow, he well knew that he was unable to change anything, and so his objection to his later designation remained only a conscious attempt on his part to change what was to come. The designations God, Jesus, and Christ alone contain dangerous values, for each of these designations embodies death, ruin, and destruction. In particular, however, all three contain the triple value 6666, the number of the extinction of truth. This, however, is to be concealed from earth humans, and falsifying and lying earthly number experts want to see other values in the names of Christ and God. But their teachings are lies and deceit, and they only serve evil and the eradication of truth. It should be known to you that Revelation also speaks of a servant of destruction and annihilation, of a human being who slavishly serves the very might of destruction, annihilation, and the eradication of truth. This human being also carries in his name value the number of the destruction, annihilation, and extinction of truth. His base number is 9 and his triple value is 666. He has been living on earth for many years and, in accordance with Providence, also made his appearance in a year with the destruction number 9 and the triple value 666. All his names, as well as also the name of his organization, are marked by the destruction number 9 and by the extinction number of truth in the triple value 666.
I have already been given these details by Asket once, but can they really be relied upon?
Sure, but it will not be that the human beings bearing the number 666 will be the actual destroyer, annihilator, and exterminator of truth.
That is clear to me. Ptah has also said that in a somewhat paraphrased form. The human being bearing the number 666 is, so to speak, only the instigator and the slave of the actual work. The might with the number 666, on the other hand, is embodied in the Christian religion.
Sure, you have understood it very well. Now come, for we want to go down to this world.
After another hyperleap,
What you see ahead is a stellar enclave of the galaxy Mara. It is the system Taro, and 15,000 million light-years away from your home. Most of the worlds in this system are blue in color, which you can see when you go there with Sim-Ya-Se. These worlds are all still alive with volcanic activity, and only in a few million years will the first life begin to develop on them, if at all.
a few minutes later on one of the volcanic worlds.
What is that down there, Sim-Ya-Se? It seems to me to be a flying object. Are there any inhabited worlds around here?
Sure, it is a flying apparatus. But its origin is strange to me. I will try to get in touch with it.
Sim-Ya-Se is busy with various of her apparatuses and also speaks into a device in a melodic language that is incomprehensible and completely foreign to me. Apparently, however, there is no success.
Are you not getting any contact?
My attempts are not responding. They must be life forms that don't have intergalactic intercourse.
Aha, but what language were you speaking earlier? I have never heard anything like that before, and it is absolutely alien to me.
You cannot know that. It is a sign language that can be spoken.
I don't understand that. But a sign language can only be drawn or painted or written by certain movements and so on.
That is not so, because sign languages can actually also be spoken. To explain this to you in more detail would take a lot of time.
Then we will leave that.
After the next hyperleap.
Where are we now?
This is the system Ises in the galaxy Diron. From here, the distance to Earth is 4,180,480,000 light-years. This star cluster also consists only of volcanic worlds that emit their own luminosity. Despite their own luminosity, however, it is very dark on the worlds. The light only penetrates outwards, but is unable to illuminate the surfaces of the worlds.
Can I still fly there with Simyase?
There is nothing in the way if that is what you want.
I would like to photograph some volcanoes.
Come on, then.
After the next hyperleap,
That giant planet up ahead is still a lone member of the star cluster we just left. It is 3 trillion kilometers away from the star cluster itself. This planet is an ice world and 11 times bigger than the planet Saturn in your solar system.
That is gigantic. But one thing I don't understand is that during the whole journey I kept noticing that we were making hyperleaps at a run, so to speak, and that you didn't care that nearby planets and stars were in danger as a result. Simyase once told me that for a hyperleap you would have to keep a safety distance of 153 million kilometers from the nearest stars and planets so that they would not be pulled into the maelstrom of the hyperleap hole. Why are you now disregarding this precaution?
You are deceived. With my ship, we have much better distance management capabilities. The technology of this ship allows us to neutralize time, as you know and have experienced. Through this process, it is possible for us to get the safety distance of 153 million kilometers behind us in a fraction of a second and then transmit.
That doesn't make sense to me. There's something fishy about this. Or you are not telling me something.
You are just relentless. On the one hand, we neutralize time to just short of the transmission point, and on the other, we create a neutral timeless channel in outer space through which we can then travel the short distance of 153 million kilometers in a split second.
It still doesn't make sense to me, though. If that is the case, why do you still make hyperleaps? I think that this process should actually be easier than a hyperleap. Besides, we can talk to each other and wouldn't be paralyzed by the transmission every time and practically thrown into eternity. So why might you make it more cumbersome?
You are very observant and have very deep thoughts. The timeless channel is actually easier to manage than a hyperleap. But such a channel can only be created at certain distances, always taking into account the nature of the environment. The various energies of the different galaxies and systems limit the range of a timeless channel, with distances varying from 210 billion, 210,000 to 735 billion, 735,000 kilometers.
Aha. So then this time, neutralization only takes place through purely galactic and systemic energies, which you make use of. While for the hyperleaps, you can practically use an intergalactic or rather the most diverse universal energies. According to my calculation, these universal energies should be far superimposed on the galactic energies and accordingly should be sought in much higher values. Or am I mistaken in that?
You speak like a good scientist. Your figures are exactly right.
I am slowly getting the hang of you. And I am beginning to understand the connections, only I am afraid I lack the concept of technology to be able to evaluate everything.
It's thus better, because on Earth they would try to take that knowledge away from you.
Again, you are right. It is probably better if I keep my mouth shut and don't take too much interest in such things, as I have done up to now. So if you don't mind, I would like to ask you something else that I am very interested in.
You know you can always ask.
Good then, thanks. You know, I have been interested for a long time if there are worlds and life forms in our universe that are about the same level of development as those of us human beings from Earth.
The diversity of the creation knows no bounds.
That is clear to me, and I truly think of it only in awe.
You are very wise, and I feel within me admiration for you, for I see that these are your honest feelings. How good would your life on Earth be if many thought and felt as you do?
But alas, this is not so. Earth humans prefer to be lulled by the accursed manifold heresies and thereby alienate themselves from the truth of the glory of the creation.
You speak very bitterly. You feel pain within you for your fellow man. This also often makes you speak very harsh words because it allows you to hide your true emotions from your fellow human beings.
Why do you say that? It's true, damn it again. It's really enough to make one cry and run away.
It is the truth. But I don't want you to cause yourself pain with it.
That is easier said than done. When I see that everywhere in our world there is need and misery and countless human beings simply die miserably, then I am simply overcome with anger and I could smash everything to bits. How many human beings there are among us who only lack a little love to make them content and happy? Every human being needs love, honest love, damn it. But why don't we give it to them? Why does everyone only live past the other, and why does no one help the other? And why are those punished by the authorities who feel real love for their fellow human beings, and also give them this love? I have also been fined a very large sum because of this. Why, damn it all, does it have to be like this with us Earth humans? I just do not understand. Creation is so powerful in its glory, in its wisdom and truth, and in its knowledge, but why human beings cannot keep to it, and have to run after the cursed cultic religions in order to plunge themselves and everyone else into even more misery? This is beyond my spiritual horizon. Maybe I'm actually too stupid to be able to understand this, or then I am already on the way to going crazy. I am.
Please don't do that. You are causing me pain with your words. You understand everything very well and also know all the reasons. But you allow yourself to become angry because you know and see the great suffering of Earth humans, and know very well that it will take a very long time before peace, knowledge, peace, wisdom, and truth will return to your homeworld. It grieves you because you know how much more suffering will befall Earth humans before they take the path of truth. You know everything very well and also know many coming events. But this is no reason for you to put yourself in pain, by which you also cause me pain.
Excuse me, that was really not in my mind.
You are a very dear friend to me, and I don't want you to grieve and suffer.
Thanks.
That is my feeling too.
Thanks, you guys are very sweet. We were talking about something earlier. What was it?
You were interested in other worlds and life forms equal to Earth and Earth humans.
Oh yes, that's correct, but there's something else haunting my brain. We were talking about the Timeless Channel earlier. Something is still not clear to me. In other words, something is not clear to me about this journey. You told me that I had become about half an hour younger than the human beings on Earth. This is because we were in eternity for 7 minutes. I know that my wristwatch always goes crazy when I get close to Simyase's beam ships. But now it seems to have gone completely crazy, because I already have the date of the 19th day on it. According to that, I should have been cruising around the universe with you for more than 2 days already. You, Simyase, told me that we would need about 30 hours. Something is wrong with the time. Besides, I am not tired, hungry, or thirsty. So what is really being tinkered with?
Simyase did give you some of our fruits and also some vegetables to eat.
Of course, but that was a long time ago.
The vegetables and fruits of this kind are very nutritious and thirst-quenching compared to your produce. They can satisfy your hunger and thirst for up to 90 hours.
I accept this explanation, and it also seems to me to be as you say. But something is still wrong. Why am I not tired?
This is also very easy to explain. You breathe the same air here in the Raumer as we do. But this corresponds to the conditions on our home world, and is much healthier and more invigorating than on Earth. The oxygen content is several values higher than on Earth, and there are also some differences in the composition of the other elements. but everything is as breathable for you as it is for ourselves. The different composition of our air, however, guarantees us a longer wakefulness and a much shorter need for sleep than is the case on Earth. That is the reason why you are not tired.
Your explanation makes sense to me, but you are still hiding something. Something is just not right, I can feel it. Is my alarm clock really acting so crazy that it's suddenly going forward by days?
Your HR's is very accurate.
I mean, that means we have been cruising the universe for more than 2 days?
Sure, we have spent a bit more time than we intended.
Golly, I am going crazy, and you say it so easily. What do you think is going to happen at my house? My wife is going crazy. I told her I would be home no later than the evening of the 18th. Human beings. My wife has already reported me missing to the police. That's going to set me off a fuss.
It won't be all that bad.
You say that. What arias do you think my wife can sing? She can truly replace a whole orchestra.
Are you afraid of your wife?
Not that. But if it is possible for me, I avoid such theatrics and musical outpourings.
Well, that's good then, because we are going to be on the road for many more hours.
I am enjoying you. I promptly get my wife to quit loving me after all.
It's not going to be that bad, is it?
Do you have any idea?
You are taking your fun a bit far, my child.
Aha, so Simyase is just teasing me? Then you must have hatched something. Is it possible my alarm clock isn't working correctly after all?
You have a very good watch.
Sure, that is indeed so. I was just teasing you a little bit.
Do you mean loosely along the lines of love likes to tease?
If you think of it in terms of friendship, then yes.
Then I am reassured. But now what have you been keeping from me so far?
Father already said that your watch is correct, and we have really been on the road for such a long time too. But you do not have to worry about that, not even if we need a good day or more before we bring you back. You yourself have obviously not grasped the possibilities that are available to us in terms of time. It takes...
Oh, I forgot about that. Surely you want to guess at time travel? Perhaps the same form I remember from Asket?
Sure. Since we are in free space and do not influence any events, etc., we can travel back in time for a few days without hesitation and continue to live there without anything changing. Although you will be away from your home for more than 3 days in total, you will only have been away for about 20 hours according to earthly normal time.
That sounds a bit crazy. So I have been away from home for a little over 2 days now, and I will be away for a total of 3 or more days. So that means I started this journey with you on the 17th, and I am now on the road with you for more than 2 days, because today is the 19th. But now I am going to spend more days with you, and then I am going to travel back in time with you, to be back home on the 18th. Although in reality I am still on a great journey on the 20th or so, and I am going to curve through the universe with you. Is that right?
Sure.
Aha, it's true. I guess that's everything, isn't it?
Sure.
Quite simple, actually. I am sure every human being understands that and doesn't even break their brain doing it.
It is to be understood.
Sure. It is the simplest thing in the world that I go on a big trip with you on the 17th, find out on the 19th that I am already here for more than 2 days, and return home tomorrow on the 20th or even later and arrive there on the 18th. Really, this is very simple, and everyone can understand it perfectly. It is only a simple madness of universal proportions. Even a child can understand it. It is just as simple as the elimination of trees. There's a huge fir tree in a meadow that a farmer has been sawing off the lowest branches for 50 or 70 years, gathering up the fir cones and burning them. Then you simply come and eliminate the tree, and for 50 or 70 years the said farmer has never constantly sawn off the lowest branches, and also not gathered up any pine cones, and of course not burnt them either. This is all really very simple, and any human being can understand that.
Now I don't understand you.
That is very simple. Everything is very clear to me, and I understand everything very well. But make that clear to my dear fellow human beings for once. H. Jacob, for example, still cannot digest the fact that the weather furs have simply disappeared, and that no human being can remember them except me. It also doesn't make sense to him that you have also erased his memory, because he knows at least that one area very well where one of the trees used to stand. It simply does not make sense to him that he cannot remember the tree, although he must have seen it again and again over a long period of time. Therefore, he also comes back to this tree again and again and explains that no tree could have stood there.
These things are peculiar to ignorant and doubting Earth humans. So do not trouble yourself further with these things. If you wanted to adduce evidence, it would be useless, for where understanding of certain things is lacking, it cannot be helped by force. In former times, visible proofs were necessary for the human beings of the earth in order to impart certain forms of thought to them. But by these visible proofs, they began to believe in miracles, and at other times they went astray. The present time of the earth has progressed beyond visible evidence, and the path of clear and logical reason and equally clear and logical understanding alone must be followed. Only these values count for the present time, and they are the better evidence than all those which are visible,